Hi, Team Drummond. Mrs. McGrath here. Hope you guys are doing well. I just wanted to let you know that I've been thinking about you and miss you a lot, and hope you're finding some joy in your time at home. I just wanted to say hi to Francesca, and hello, Quinn. Hi, Parker. Hi, Benjamin. Hi, Kylia. Hi, Raya. Hello, Jackson. Hello, Max. Hi, Miles. Hi, Lainey. Hi, Julian. Hi, Mary Kate. Hi, Charlie. Hi, Connor. Hi, Sloan. Hi, Ayla. Hello, Sebastian. I hope you guys are doing well. I thought I'd share a story with you guys today. It was called Make Way for Ducklings. Now, as I'm showing you pictures, I just need you to know that this is kind of a funny book. This is just the cover of it. But it's a great big book that has, you can see that there's this one sort of story on one page, and then there's another story on another page, and in here there are other stories. So it's a whole bunch of books all kind of put into one. So it's a little bit heavy to hold, so if I'm not holding it up for you to see the entire time, that's why, because it's a little bit heavy. I can use my muscles, but it'll be easier to read, look at the picture, show you the picture, okay? How you guys all doing? You doing all right? Please reach out. Let me know how you are. If you've been able to take a peek at the PE information that you could use. I put out a challenge the other day of learning how to do the Cotton Eye Joe. Sloan, I know your leg is still probably hurting, but you might be able to do your own version of the Cotton Eye Joe if you guys have checked that out at all. Let me know. All right, so here we go. This is Make Way for Ducklings by Robert McClosky. How many of you know this book? Probably lots of you. Mr. and Mrs. Mallard were looking for a place to live. But every time Mr. Mallard saw what looked like a nice place, Mrs. Mallard said it was no good. There were sure to be foxes in the woods or turtles in the water, and she was not going to raise a family where there might be foxes or turtles. So they flew on and on. Here they are, flying on and on. The next morning they finished their breakfast in the mud at the bottom of the pond, but they didn't find much. Just as they were getting ready to start on their way, a strange, enormous bird came by. It was pushing a boat full of people, and there was a man sitting on its back. "Good morning," quacked Mr. Mallard, being polite. The bird was too proud to answer, but the people on the boat threw peanuts into the water, so the mallards followed them all around the pond and got another breakfast, better than the first. "I like this place," said Mrs. Mallard as they climbed out of the bank and waddled along. "Why don't we build a nest to raise our ducklings right on this pond? There are no foxes and no turtles, and people feed us peanuts. What could be better?" "Good," said Mr. Mallard, delighted that at last Mrs. Mallard had found a place that suited her. "But—" "Look out!" squawked Mrs. Mallard, all of a dither. "You'll get run over." And when she caught her breath, she added, "This is no place for babies. With all those horrid things rushing about, we'll have to look somewhere else." So they flew over Beacon Hill and around the State House, but there was no place there. They looked in Louisburg Square, but there was no water to swim in. Then they flew over the Charles River. "This is better," quacked Mr. Mallard. "That island looks like a nice quiet place, and it's only a little way from the public garden." "Yes," said Mrs. Mallard, remembering the peanuts. "That looks just like the right place to hatch ducklings." They chose a cozy spot among the bushes near the water and settled down to build their nests, and only just in time, for now they were beginning to molt. All of their old wing feathers started to drop out, and they would not be able to fly again until new ones grew in. But of course they could swim, and one day they swam over to the park on the river bank, and there they met a policeman called Michael. Michael fed them peanuts, and after that the Mallards called on Michael every day. There's Michael the policeman. How am I doing showing those pictures? After Mrs. Mallard had laid 8 eggs in the nest, she couldn't go visit Michael anymore because she had to sit on the eggs and keep them warm. She moved off the nest only to get a drink of water, or to have her lunch, or to count the eggs and make sure they were all safe. One day the ducklings hatched out. First came Jack, then Cack, and Lack, then Mack, and Knack, and Oack, Pack, and Quack. Mr. and Mrs. Mallard were bursting with pride. It was such a great responsibility taking care of so many ducklings, and it kept them very busy. Here they all are. One day Mr. Mallard decided he'd like to take a trip to see what the rest of the river was like further on, so he set off. "I'll meet you in a week in the public garden," he quacked over his shoulder. "Take good care of our ducklings." "Don't you worry," said Mrs. Mallard. "I know all about bringing up children." And she did. She taught them how to swim and dive. She taught them how to walk in a line, to come when they were called, and to keep safe distance from bikes and scooters and other things with wheels. When at last she felt perfectly satisfied with them, she said one morning, "Come along, children, follow me." And before you could wink an eyelash, Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Oack, Pack, and Quack fell into line, just as they had been taught. Mrs. Mallard led the way into the water, and they swam behind her to the opposite bank. So that's what they were doing there. There they waded ashore and waddled along until they came to the highway. Mrs. Mallard stepped out across the road. Honk, honk went the horns on the speeding cars. Quack went Mrs. Mallard, and she tumbled back again. Quack, 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 quack went Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Oack, Pack, and Quack, just as loud as their little quackers could quack. The cars kept speeding by and honking. Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings kept right on, quack, 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 quacking. They made such a noise that Michael came running, waving his arms and blowing his whistle. He planted himself in the center of the road, raised one hand to stop the traffic, and then beckoned with the other, the way policemen do, for the Mallards to cross over. And soon Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings were safe on the other side, and on their way down to Mount Vernon Street, Michael rushed back to his police booth. He called Clancy at headquarters and said, "There's a family of ducks waddling down the street." Clancy said, "A family of what?" "Ducks," yelled Michael. "Send a police car quick." Meanwhile, Mrs. Mallard had reached the corner bookshop and turned into Charles Street with Cack, Jack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Oack, Pack, and Quack, all marching in line behind her. Everyone stared. An old lady from Beacon Hill said, "Isn't it amazing?" A man who swept the street said, "Well, now, ain't that nice?" And then Mrs. Mallard heard them. She was so proud, she tipped her nose in the air and walked along with an extra swing in her waddle. Then they came to the corner of Beacon Street. Can you see that? There we go. They came to the corner of Beacon Street, where the police car with 4 policemen that Clancy had sent from headquarters. The policemen held back the traffic so Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings could march across the street, right on into the public garden. Inside the gate, they all turned around to say thank you to the policeman. The policeman smiled and waved goodbye. So there's the first one. There's the second one. When they reached the pond and swam across to the little island where Mr. Mallard was waiting for them, just as he had promised, the ducklings liked the new island so much they decided to live there. All day long, they followed the swan boats and ate peanuts. When night falls, they swim to their little island and go to sleep. Here they are. There's Mr. Mallard on the island, and here they all come. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. I hope you enjoyed that. Maybe another time I'll choose another one to read from this great big book of stories. I hope you're all doing well. I'm saying a lot. Miss you guys. And I hope to see you soon, maybe on Zoom with Mrs. Drummond. All right? Take care. Behave yourselves out there. Stay active. Be kind to the people around you. And I hope to see you soon.